How's it going, everyone? Quag here, and I am here with the long-awaited Rakk Stab update video. This is going to go through the build and some of its variations you can use at level 65. This is the flagship build of mine that launched my channel, to be perfectly honest, so I'm very enthusiastic about this one, and let's go right into the gear and skill tree suggestions. So in terms of skill tree, the obvious thing that sticks out here is we do not have any points invested in purple, as it does nothing of value for us in any amount of skill points we're willing to use. Then in red tree, it looks pretty standard with minor deviations from traditional setups in that we have 1 in second intention just for quality of life and because it is boosted by big game, so efficiency. Then we have 3 out of 3 and leave no trace. This is going to help for the rare situations in which we need to fire our weapon. But the most important things are the damage skills here. We have 5 out of 5 Interplanetary Stalker for damage. We have 5 out of 5 Hunter's Eye for damage. We have 3 out of 3 Head Count for cooldown. It is the second part of our cooldown machine alongside Eager to Impress, which we will go over in just a moment. But then we have 3 out of 3 Big Game to boost all of our hunt skills. Now, an unlisted thing is that Hunter's Eye is indeed a hunt skill, so it is boosted by this. Then we have Most Dangerous Game for gun damage and critical hit damage. We have Galactic Shadow for reduced aggro against enemies. So occasionally this will cause your pet to be targeted instead of you. And critical hit damage. Then we have Grim Harvest for gun damage, pet damage, and action skill damage. The impactful thing here is the action skill damage. This will affect our racks, which are supplementary damage. And then Megavore. This most notably will make our bonus element on our grenade able to crit. And that means that our static charge, on top of being able to naturally crit, can deliver this element with crits. This will also affect our white elephant should we use it, and is just generally a great utility option to have. Then in the blue tree, we are getting down primarily to Frenzy and Pack Tactics and Barbaric Yawp. These are the 3 important things here. So to get there, we put 3 points in Persistence Hunter. This gives incidental gun damage that can be helpful for your face puncher. And then you have 2 points in Ferocity, just to get down. 1 point in Who Rescued Who will give functional pet immortality. Then we have 3 points in He Bites. We need at least 1 to facilitate better Frenzy uptime. Now, Frenzy will give you V1 damage, which is a damage type only Flak gets in skill tree. It's important in Borderlands 3 build making to diversify your damage boost as much as possible to get a good multiplication going on. And then we have 1 point in Psycho Head on a Stick. This will make our pet faster as long as we've gotten a kill recently, which will enable it to stack Frenzy more effectively and also revive us with Lick the Wounds over in the green a little more quickly. And then we have 5 out of 5 in Barbaric Yawp. Now this will boost our pet provided passives, meaning in the case of using Spider and Scorcher, as we do in this spec, that we get, instead of 10% elemental damage, with 5 out of 5 Yawp, we will get 30%. Now this is absolutely huge because elemental damage is one of the bonuses that is checked multiple times in calculation due to things like the static charge artifact taking another damage source into account as its base, meaning if you've heard the term double dipping, that's what that is. And then we have Pack Tactics as another source of V1 damage and also health. Then over in green, we have Furious Attack, just to get down the tree. You could put these points over in Self-Repairing System if you want survivability over a bit of situational gun damage. And then you have Eager to Impress, one of the most important things in this spec. This will give us significant chunks of cooldown back whenever we get kills. And then we have Lick the Wounds as a safety net to get our pet to revive us when Peregrine, quite frankly, loves to blow us up. So this is an important countermeasure. Now, there's a lot of skill tree flexibility with this build. You can choose to go with any other configuration. I will have several below labeled appropriately, so you can choose a different one for different scenarios, but this is the main recommended skill tree. Now, as for action skill, we're using Rakk Attack, and we're using our Rackcelerate augment for an extra charge and better cooldown, because the core of this build is using racks as much as possible. And then we have Flock and Load for just a bit of additional damage. You could, instead of Flock and Load, run Falconer's Feast if you want a little bit of extra healing, but damage is the name of the game, so we're going that route. And as mentioned during the Barbaric Yawp description, we have Spider Ant Scorcher as our pet. This will give us elemental damage, which is something that you cannot get in the tree any other way. For the gear suggestions, we're going to start with the most obvious thing, the Stinger. Now, the Stinger shield is the core of this build. You need the action skill Start Anointment here so that whenever you use your Rakk attack, the melee Nova you can see on the card here triggers, and that Nova gets your melee damage bonuses, gets your Splash, your Elemental, your V1, V2, all of that, and it delivers your melee artifacts. This is the core of the build. It will not work without this. You can farm this from Anathema in the Guardian Takedown. This is the first of the two bosses. And you can farm this most easily by putting the difficulty on Mayhem 8, as you still get guaranteed annoyance, and just farm that first boss as much as possible. In terms of element for this, you're going to want a full spread of elements. The most important thing is that it has an element at all, because that will allow you to double dip your elemental bonuses. Corrosive will be the best for takedown content, as all takedown bosses are armored, but you're going to want fire for certain other bosses, such as the Ruiner. And Cryo is a great mobbing pick. Radiation is a good general purpose use. Corrosive would be what I generally recommend for use, though. And then we have the Fish Slap. Now, this is from the Cartel event, so this cannot be farmed currently until the event comes back. But even at level 57, non-mayhem, this grenade does everything we need to do and more. It counts as melee damage, so it will get all of our melee buffs, it will deliver our melee artifact, so on and so forth. You're seeing a pattern here between the Stinger and the Fish Slap. These are melee functions that are better than melee. To round out the trinity of that, we have the Face Puncher as our second wind option. Now, this is a build that uses a Face Puncher, but is not built around it. This is just a backup, utility, reliability item. The main thing we're going to be holding is our Psycho Stabber to boost all of our melee damage. It is a 120% melee buff with a 2.2 times multiplier to all melee buffs on top of that. 390 is going to be the best anoint there, because that will make us able to front load our damage to the point where we can outright one-shot most things. For things we can't one-shot, that's where this next slot comes in. We have a Wyvern here with 200 splash and 160% melee damage. Now, this is the best option for things that are outside of your 390 range, but if you can't farm this, because this does not have a drop source, you just have to get lucky, you can run a 100 melee ASC Psycho Stabber instead. They're very close in performance. For this last slot, we have a res for utility. You can put any sort of utility item you want here. I highly recommend a res, but you can run an EMP5 for movement speed. You can run a Plague Bearer for dealing with flying enemies that your Face Puncher would have some difficulty with, such as the Prismatic or Voltaic Racks in the Cistern of Slaughter. You have lots of options here. Or you can run a second Face Puncher that doesn't have URAD. URAD here is to maximize our power and fight for your life, should that happen. But you could run a 390 or a 100 melee ASC one up here. And then the slot that... The last two slots here require a lot of explanation, because there's so much flexibility. Flak is build diversity given form as a character, and Rakk Stab takes full advantage of that. With the artifact slot, our recommended mobbing pick is going to be a static charge with either the Knife Drain or Snowdrift prefixes, depending on your personal comfort level. Knife Drain will help you get used to the build, as anytime you hit something with either your Ground Slam, your Stinger, your Fish Slap, your Face Puncher, or just punching something, you're going to get full health. You just instant heal. You do so much damage, there's no question, you fully heal. Now, Static Charge makes anything hit by a melee attack from you take bonus shock damage, but if there's another enemy nearby, they will also shoot a chain based partially on that initial melee damage at that enemy. Because this is elemental, it will double dip your elemental bonuses because it uses other elemental damage as a base. It will indirectly scale off your melee. It gets your V1 and V2 bonuses again. And the ideal passives you want for your artifact slot are going to be action skill cooldown, AoE damage in the second or third slot, so you also get radius for your Stinger Nova, and melee damage. Now, other artifacts you can pick. You have the Unleash the Dragon. This is going to be the absolute peak of bossing for this setup. And melee damage and incendiary damage is a perfect roll here. What this does is places a fire dot on enemies that is based off of your melee damage dealt. And this dot does insane amounts of damage. You can, as you saw in the demo footage, instantly kill any boss in the game with this. There are no enemies that can survive Unleash the Dragon applied by Rakk Stab. They don't exist. So, this is the peak of your bossing. However, you lose survivability and you lose stinger radius. So I would not recommend this for all mobbing, but experiment to taste. Other options you have, as mentioned before, Snowdrift instead of Knife Drain. You have Shock Stone for specific bossing scenarios, such as strong shields, like the shields on Scourge or on Valkyries if you're doing speedruns. And then you have White Elephant for primarily single target face puncher scenarios. Then in the class mod slot, we're going with the Peregrine. Now this will deploy your Fish Slap whenever you hit an enemy with a Rakk on a 3-second cooldown, leading to the ability to deploy your Static Charge, or any melee artifact for that matter, at range. Now, Peregrine also rolls with Eager to Impress, which is a very powerful cooldown effect, and you even get that 1 point in Interplanetary Stalker because of a bug not allowing you to roll 5 points in any one skill on Peregrine. Ideal passives are Splash Damage, Splash Radius, and Melee Damage, because those will benefit your Stinger and your rotation of Stinger Novas most heavily. Other class mods you can use for this, you can use a Friend Bot with as many points in Barbaric Yawp as possible to further increase your elemental damage for certain bossing strategies where you don't necessarily want a Fish Slap thrown in your face. You can run a Rack Pack for good flat damage, a Deadeye for movement speed and good flat damage, a Cosmic Stalker for good damage overall. It is very hard to find a bad class mod for this setup. Rakk Commander was actually best in slot for the setup before the existence of Peregrine because it rolls Eager to Impress, it gives an extra Rakk charge, allowing the most use of Stinger Novas possible. And that does it for the video. If you'd like to see more of me, I'm live 6 days a week over at twitch.tv/tbjquag. I'd love to see you all there. And also, if you'd like to peruse the Community Flak builds document, that's a resource I maintain. It is pinned in the official Borderlands Discord. It is over 48 pages of Flak builds, optimized, and important resources on how the character works. It can be very confusing, and I used a lot of terms in this video. So if you'd like to check up on those or see the text write-up of Rakk Stab, that's all linked in the description down below. Take it easy, everyone. Thank you so much for stopping in, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day.